Hi, today we're going to be making a cornflake nut roast. So we're going to start with 5 cups of cornflakes. Now these are gluten-free, but if you're not gluten-free and you want to use regular cornflakes, that's up to you. And the way I crush them is just by putting them into a bag. I showed this in the last video. Squish out all the air. And that's about it. We're going to put that into our bowl. And then we're going to use 2 eggs beaten. Now, I don't use eggs. I'm a vegetarian. I had stopped eating eggs some time back before I became a vegan, mainly because eggs started making me sick and I didn't know why. And then I started reading up about eggs and I found out how they're raised and everything they add to them and whatnot. So for me, that was not a good thing. If you want to know more about eggs, look them up. Google is wonderful on telling information. This is an egg replacer, and it's a powdered egg replacer. Now it says to mix it with water, and then you beat it, and then you put it into your item of what you're cooking. And that's wonderful for something like that. That's fine, like this that we're making. But if you're making like a pumpkin pie, don't try to do that. You'll end up with white spots. So what I normally do is I just take the dry powder and I put it in with the dry ingredients, and it doesn't come up as little white spots anywhere. But anyways, it is a good egg replacer, and I've been using it for years. This is by Energy and it's a egg replacer you can get from the health food store, and I think they run maybe $5 a box. It lasts me for eons, it seems like. So anyways, it called for 2 eggs beaten, so I'm just going to add just the powder like that. And then it calls for 1.5 cups of chopped nuts. Move that over there. So this is the nut chopper we had showed last time. It's easier for me to have a nut chopper. You don't have to. You can use a blender. I just don't like using the blender and then having to get everything out of there. This seems to be a little bit easier for me. These are pecans. You can use walnuts. You can use cashews or almonds. Anything you want to use in this recipe. It's whatever nuts you want. And this is 1.5 cups, and this holds about 1.5 cups. So. Okay. Now, this nut chopper, like this bowl, You do not have to wash it every time. You can put it in the freezer and it stays just fine, and then when you want to use it again, take it out. That way the nut that is in there will not go rancid. You're not growing bugs or anything like that. So that's a tip right there. Anyways, then we're going to be adding 1 cup of milk. So let's mix this up a bit. Now the recipe called for 2 cups of milk. I've made it before, and sometimes I don't need quite 2 cups. So if I need another cup, I can do that. Now, I don't use milk. I'm a dairy-free, so because I'm allergic to milk and dairy products. So today I'm using soy silk. You don't have to use soy. You can use almond, or you can use cashew, or soy. I think that was all there are. I guess there's a few other nut milks if you want to look for them. But anyways, so it's up to you what you want to use. Now, if I need a little bit more, I can always add more. But 2 cups sometimes is a little bit too much. And then I need 1/4 of a cup of oil. So I'm just using an olive oil. And then I'm adding, it says 1 chopped onion. Now, my husband is not a fan of onions, so I use red onions because they seem to be a little bit sweeter and not so strong and pungent in taste. And I'm not using a whole one. I'm only going to use 1/2 of one. If you want to use a whole one, that's up to you. And if you want to use any of the other onions, that's your dish. You make it the way you want it. So I'm adding 1/2 of an onion. And this is like medium size. And then 1 teaspoon of chicken seasoning. Now, being a vegan, I use vegan products. They're a little harder to find. So what I'm using is McKay's. I'll show you that right here. McKay's seasoning. This chicken seasoning I find to be something I like. My family does too. But as long as it's not a chicken product, a real chicken product, you can use whatever. But there's G. Washington's. There's the McKay's. McKay's you can find sometimes at a grocery store, not very often. I usually find it at a health food store or at an ABC center. Now, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, and Adventists are known for their diet. And as an Adventist, we do have a food store. They're called ABC Centers, which means Adventist Book-Center. And you can look them up on Google, put in Adventist Book-Center, and you will find an Adventist bookstore near you somewhere. Call them first, make sure that they have McKay's in stock. Sometimes they're out, sometimes they're not. But, just to make sure, I wouldn't want you to drive somewhere where you didn't have to go right then. But anyway, so there are other vegan products out there. Knorr is not a vegan product. That's Knorr, I believe. And a lot of people try to use Knorr, but they're not always vegan. So be careful of the Knorr products because they're not always vegan. And if you want to stay vegan, that's something you need to be careful of. Anyways, I'm going to use half a teaspoon of sage and 1/2 teaspoon of poultry seasoning. And it says salt to taste. I'm using about 1 teaspoon. Now, if that's too much for you or if you think it needs more, that's totally up to you. So, and I do need a little bit more milk. It's a little dry. Now we're going to be making a cashew gravy to put over this. I'll show that in the next segment here in a few minutes. And nut meats are the meat for the vegetarian. That's why they're called nut meats. They have all the nutrients, the amino acids, the vitamins that you need. And they're easily digested when you prepare them properly. And that means, the last video I had explained, I'll explain again. When you buy your nuts, bring them home, rinse them real good. Now, these are pecans. Pecans and walnuts need to be rinsed at least twice. And then I take a parchment-lined cookie sheet. You can use the regular cookie sheet without parchment paper, but by doing that, you're going to be scrubbing it later when you take the nuts off. I speak from experience. So I found out parchment paper works well. And I put the parchment paper on there. I soak those nuts for about, now pecans and walnuts is about 6 to 8 hours. And you can put them in a bowl in clear water and soak them overnight for like 8 hours, 6 hours, whatever. Get up in the morning and then just drain them, kind of rinse them if you want to, and drain them. And then put them on the parchment paper on the cookie sheet, single layer. Put them in the oven at about 200 and let them sit there until, and then probably in between, sometime or another, at least halfway between at least, you need to turn them. And then you know when they're done, when you can snap them and you hear that snap, you know that the nuts are done then. So, okay, we've got this mixed up and we're going to put this into a loaf pan. Now you don't have to use a loaf pan, you can use a casserole dish, it does not matter. But I'm going to use a loaf for today. Let's move these out of the way. Okay, then we're going to put this into the oven at about 350 degrees for 1 hour. Now to keep it a little bit moist on top, I'm going to use some foil. And here's a tip for you. The bright shiny side reflects heat. The dull side holds heat. Took me a long time to figure that one out. Someone told me. I was amazed. I did not know that. And then we're going to cut a couple of slits in the top and it's ready to put in the oven. Okay, so we have our loaf. It's done. I've let it cool a bit. If you hear a bird in the background, I have a macaw. She likes to talk and yell, so we're going to put this on the platter. We can leave it that way or we can turn it over, either way. And we can cut it like that. And I think put some on a plate. And our gravy, And this gravy is the country style gravy. And we can actually put it right on over it like this. It works good on baked potatoes also, or mashed potatoes is good. Here we have a vegetable, and we have some broccoli. And I want to show you with the broccoli, it's not mushy, just tender. So it's not falling apart or anything like that. And that is the way you want to cook them. You want to cook your vegetables that way. And that way it keeps it from being mushy. You don't want mushy vegetables, too soft of vegetables. Anyways, there is a dinner. You put that with a green salad and baked potato or mashed potatoes or rice, and you've got dinner.